And since then, as you know, and as everybody's been talking about, I've just been unable to sing.
How's your voice doing? Are you improving?
Oh, it's not so good. It's coming along very, very, very slowly.
Doe, a deer, a female deer, Ray, a just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in a most...
Her voice wasn't just beautiful, it was otherworldly. When Julie Andrews sang, it felt like the world stood still. The notes were clean, crystal clear, and impossibly high. The kind of voice that didn't just perform music, but became it. She didn't need studio effects, she didn't need backup singers, just her and a melody, and somehow it was enough to fill a room, a theater, or an entire childhood with wonder. In Mary Poppins, she was practically perfect in every way. In The Sound of Music, she wasn't just Maria, she was the sound of hope itself. Julie Andrews' voice wasn't only her gift, it was her identity. But one day, that gift disappeared. Not because of age, not because of time, but because of a mistake. In 1997, after decades of performing, she went in for a routine throat surgery, one meant to protect her voice. Doctors told her it was simple, safe, something she'd recover from in weeks. But when she woke up, something was terribly wrong. Her voice, that perfect angelic sound the world had fallen in love with, was gone. At first, she thought it was temporary, maybe swelling, maybe healing. But as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, reality set in. The woman who had once filled concert halls and movie screens could barely speak. Julie Andrews, the voice of generations, had lost the one thing that made her who she was. And the cruelest part, it happened in a place where she should have been safe, a hospital room. Fans would later ask, what really happened in that operating room? Was it a tragic accident, or something no one wanted to admit? Because what followed wasn't just heartbreak, it was a fight for truth and for identity. You're watching RetroWaves, where we uncover the stories behind the stars, the moments the cameras never showed. If you love timeless icons, hidden truths, and the real lives behind Hollywood's brightest lights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because sometimes, the most beautiful voices carry the deepest pain, and on this channel, we make sure those stories are never forgotten. Long before Julie Andrews became a household name, she was just a little girl from England with a voice that stopped people in their tracks. Born in 1935 in Walton-on-Thames, she grew up during the chaos of World War II. Her family didn't have much, but music was always there. Her mother and stepfather were both performers, and it wasn't long before they realized the little girl in their care had something rare. By the age of 10, Julie could reach notes so high and clear that adults thought it was impossible for a child. Her natural soprano range was said to extend beyond 4 octaves, a phenomenon usually found in trained opera singers. Her stepfather recognized her potential and helped guide her early performances. But behind the scenes, Julie faced challenges. In her memoir, she revealed that her childhood was far from perfect. She often felt pressured to perform, to be perfect, to hold the family together. Yet even then, her talent couldn't be contained. By 13, she was performing for King George VI. By her late teens, she was already a fixture on the West End stage, and when Broadway called, she answered. At just 19, she starred in The Boyfriend. Then came My Fair Lady, where her performance as Eliza Doolittle left critics stunned. But her life changed forever when Walt Disney himself came to see her on stage. Rumor has it, Disney was so captivated by her performance that he waited backstage afterward and personally offered her the lead in Mary Poppins. This detail is partly based on personal accounts and studio recollections, but the exact conversation has never been fully verified. The role fit her perfectly, and in 1964, Julie Andrews' film debut made her an international star. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress, her voice enchanting millions across the world. A year later came The Sound of Music, and with it, immortality. That voice, pure, angelic, filled with strength and innocence, became part of history. Julie wasn't just a singer, she was a symbol. In a world that was growing louder and faster, her calm, steady tone reminded people of grace. For decades, she kept that same precision, that same discipline. She rarely lost control, never lost her poise, and always protected her instrument, her voice. But even the strongest voices can strain under the weight of time. By the mid-1990s, Julie began to notice something strange. Singing wasn't as easy as before. Some notes felt forced, her throat occasionally tight. Doctors diagnosed her with benign nodules, small, non-cancerous growths that often develop on the vocal cords of professional singers. It's a common issue, usually fixed with a minor surgery. Her doctors reassured her it was nothing to worry about. The operation would help her sing again, stronger than before. But that's not what happened. In 1997, at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, she underwent surgery, and when she woke up, her world had changed. The woman who had once brought life to every note could no longer sing. Her tone was gone, her range vanished. Even her speaking voice was weak, almost unrecognizable. At first, Julie stayed silent, both literally and emotionally. She refused interviews, hoping it was just temporary. She followed medical advice, took vocal rest, and waited. But as time passed, it became clear her voice was not coming back, and when she finally spoke publicly, her words broke hearts. She said, "My singing voice has been taken from me. No anger, just quiet devastation." For someone whose life had been built on music, it wasn't just a loss, it was like losing part of her soul. The world was shocked. How could something so routine go so wrong? And what did the doctors say when the truth came out? When Julie Andrews entered Mount Sinai Hospital in 1997, she wasn't scared. Doctors had assured her the procedure was simple, safe, and routine. She was having non-cancerous nodules removed from her vocal cords, something many singers undergo with full recovery. She trusted them. After all, they were among New York's most respected throat specialists. But after the anesthesia wore off, Julie felt something was wrong. Her throat hurt more than expected. Her voice, that clear bell-like sound that once filled concert halls, came out hoarse, broken, almost unrecognizable. Doctors told her it was normal. They said she just needed rest. But weeks passed, then months. Her voice didn't return. At first, Julie tried to stay calm. She followed every medical instruction: therapy, silence, humidifiers, warm teas. She prayed that with time it would heal. But deep down, she knew something had gone terribly wrong. When she tried to sing, no sound came out, not even a whisper of what once was. The woman who could once soar across octaves could now barely speak above a breath. The pain wasn't just physical, it was emotional devastation. This wasn't just a career setback, it was identity theft. For over 50 years, her voice had been her anchor, the center of her art, her fame, her purpose. Without it, she felt lost. In interviews years later, she would describe it quietly. It was a devastating blow. Singing was who I was. According to verified reports, later medical examinations revealed scarring and damage to her vocal cords. Something had gone wrong during the surgery, and it couldn't be undone. That realization shattered her world. But what she did next would surprise everyone, because instead of hiding in silence, Julie Andrews decided to speak up and fight back. By 1999, Julie Andrews had reached her breaking point. Her once promised recovery had turned into years of pain and false hope, and so she made a decision few celebrities ever make. She filed a lawsuit against the very doctors who operated on her. The suit, filed in New York, accused 2 throat surgeons of medical malpractice, alleging that the surgery had irreparably damaged her vocal cords. Her legal team claimed that the operation had been done incorrectly and that it had left her with permanent injuries that made singing impossible. The news made headlines worldwide. Fans were heartbroken. The idea that the world's most beloved voice had been silenced, not by illness or age, but by human error, felt unbearable. Still, Julie remained graceful. She never lashed out publicly, never accused anyone personally. She simply said she wanted answers and accountability. For years, the legal process dragged on, but in 2000, the case was quietly settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. To this day, the exact medical details remain sealed, and Julie has never publicly revealed everything that was discovered. Some reports, though unconfirmed, suggest that the damage was caused by excessive tissue removal or scarring during the procedure. This remains unverified. The exact cause has never been officially confirmed. What is confirmed is that the surgery left her vocal cords permanently scarred, and with that, one of the most perfect voices in history was silenced. But even in loss, Julie Andrews refused to become bitter. She later said in an interview, "I went into a depression, I felt stripped, but I had to find another way to use my voice." And she did, because if she couldn't sing, she would speak. If she couldn't perform in musicals, she would write, narrate, and inspire. Her journey of rediscovering herself was only beginning, and it would prove that even without the voice that made her famous, Julie Andrews still had something the world needed to hear. For a while, silence ruled her life. The woman who once sang Do Re Mi in the Austrian hills could barely hum a note, but those who knew her best, her family, her husband, the legendary filmmaker Blake Edwards, refused to let her give up. Edwards, who directed classics like The Pink Panther and Breakfast at Tiffany's, stood by her through every sleepless night and every tear-filled appointment. He reminded her that even without her singing, she was still the same Julie he'd fallen in love with. It took time, but slowly, she began to heal, not her voice, but her spirit. In 2001, she co-authored her first children's book with her daughter Emma Walton Hamilton, titled Mandy. Then came another and another. Before long, she had built an entire second career as a writer and storyteller, and when Disney invited her back for The Princess Diaries in 2001, audiences saw something extraordinary. Julie Andrews wasn't just surviving, she was shining again. She could no longer sing the way she once did, but her presence, her warmth, her grace, it was all still there. In later interviews, she said that even though she missed her singing voice every day, she'd learned to appreciate the quiet. She said, "My voice was how I expressed myself. When it was gone, I had to learn who I was without it." It was one of the most honest and human moments of her life. The world had known Julie Andrews as a voice, but through heartbreak, she became something greater, a symbol of strength. And just when everyone thought she'd said her last note, something miraculous happened. For years, Julie Andrews accepted that her singing voice was gone forever. Doctors told her the damage was permanent, that even with therapy, the scars on her vocal cords could never truly heal. But then, in 1999, something unexpected happened. She underwent a groundbreaking surgical procedure designed to repair scar tissue in her throat. It wasn't a guaranteed fix, not even close, but it offered something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The procedure was delicate. Surgeons carefully tried to remove the scarred tissue and restore some flexibility to her vocal cords. And though it didn't return her old voice, it did something else. It gave her a new one. Her range was limited, softer, more fragile, but it was hers again. In later interviews, Julie described that moment as a gift. She said it wasn't the same voice, but it was something, and she was grateful. Still, there were rumors, unconfirmed, that she had considered experimental treatments or therapy beyond traditional medicine. These reports were never verified and should be treated as speculation. What we do know is this: that procedure allowed her to speak clearly again, to narrate and to act. And soon, she found herself using that recovered voice for something she'd never expected: storytelling. Disney called. They wanted Julie to lend her voice to the role of Queen Clarice Rinaldi in The Princess Diaries. For the first time in years, she was back, not singing, but speaking, commanding, inspiring. And when the film premiered in 2001, audiences cheered. The woman who had once lost everything stood tall again, graceful, regal, and radiant. Julie Andrews was back, not the same as before, but stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. Behind her calm smile, Julie Andrews still carried deep pain. She once said that after the surgery, she went through a period of depression. In her words, "It felt like someone had ripped out a part of me." But through it all, one person remained by her side: her husband, Blake Edwards. They had married in 1969, blending their families and building a life full of art, laughter, and partnership. He was her creative equal, the director behind Victor Victoria, the film that had earned Julie an Oscar nomination. After her surgery, Blake became her anchor. He shielded her from the media frenzy, encouraged her to write, and reminded her that her worth wasn't tied to her voice. Together, they poured their energy into new projects: children's books, humanitarian work, and producing. But as the years passed, another challenge appeared: Blake's health. He battled chronic fatigue syndrome and depression for many years. Their love was strong, but it was tested constantly by illness and pain.
Some sad news out of Hollywood now. Director Blake Edwards, a master of comedies and smart dialogue, has died at the age of 88.
When he passed away in 2010, after more than 40 years of marriage, Julie was heartbroken. She later said, "We were joined at the hip, emotionally and artistically. I miss him every single day." After his death, Julie disappeared from public life for a while. The silence returned, not the silence of lost voice this time, but of grief. Yet even in mourning, she found ways to honor him. She continued writing with her daughter Emma, releasing memoirs and children's stories, each one filled with messages of love, resilience, and kindness. Her books didn't just sell, they comforted. It was as if through her words, Julie had found a way to sing again, quietly, differently, but with the same heart that had always defined her. And in that silence, she found something she'd never had before: peace. By the 2010s, Julie Andrews' singing career was long behind her, but her influence wasn't. You could still hear her in every young performer who dreamed of being Mary Poppins, in every school musical that sang Do Re Mi with wide-eyed wonder. Her legacy had taken on a new form. In 2017, she even returned to the stage, not to sing, but to direct. She oversaw a revival of My Fair Lady in Australia, guiding a new generation of performers through the very role that once made her a star. It was symbolic, a full-circle moment. She couldn't sing anymore, but she could still give others the chance to. And when Disney approached her again for Mary Poppins Returns in 2018, fans hoped she might cameo. But in true Julie Andrews fashion, she declined, gracefully. She said she wanted the spotlight to belong to Emily Blunt, the new Mary. "It's her movie," she said. "I want her to fly with it." That one sentence said everything about who Julie Andrews had become. Even after losing her voice, she never lost her grace. Even after heartbreak and loss, she remained a symbol of kindness. And though she could no longer sing, she found ways to make her voice heard, through narration, through writing, through love. Her speaking voice, soft, calm, filled with wisdom, became her new song. A quieter melody, but one that carried even farther. Because sometimes, losing everything doesn't end your story. Sometimes it just gives it a different sound. And in Julie Andrews' case, that sound was still beautiful. For most people, silence is ordinary. For Julie Andrews, it was the one thing she'd feared her entire life. But what do you do when the one thing that defines you vanishes overnight? For years, she avoided interviews that focused on her loss. She didn't want sympathy, she wanted understanding. Because, as she said once, I didn't just lose my voice, I lost my best friend. Every singer knows their voice isn't just sound. It's memory, identity, emotion. It's how they feel alive. And for Julie, losing it meant starting life from scratch. But through that darkness, something unexpected grew. Perspective. She realized her gift had never just been the sound itself. It was what she gave through it. Love, joy, hope, and those things don't vanish, even when the music stops. She began using her voice differently. She narrated audiobooks, documentaries, and even lent her calm tone to Shrek 2 and Despicable Me. Younger generations who had never seen the sound of music now knew her as the wise and graceful queen of animated worlds. Her speaking voice, though changed, still carried that same clarity, that same warmth that had once filled concert halls. And when she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Screen Actors Guild in 2007, the audience rose to their feet for a standing ovation that lasted over 2 minutes. Julie didn't cry, she just smiled, because deep down, she understood something most never do. Her voice might have been taken, but her song would never die. Even today, her legacy sings louder than ever through the children she inspired, the actors she mentored, and the generations who still hum her melodies every December when the sound of music returns to television. It's said that after her surgery, Julie would sometimes sit alone at the piano, not to play, but just to listen. She once told a friend, "Sometimes I can almost hear it, my old voice, it's still there, somewhere." Whether that was literal or just the echo of memory, no one knows, but it's a haunting image. The woman whose voice defined an era, sitting in silence, hearing what the rest of us could not. So what really happened to Julie Andrews? The truth is both heartbreaking and hopeful. Verified reports confirm that the 1997 surgery permanently damaged her vocal cords due to scarring, an irreversible condition. The doctors involved reached a settlement, and Julie never publicly discussed the details again. But instead of letting that pain define her, she built a second life from it. Her second act, as she calls it, became about teaching, writing, and sharing her story. She's written over 30 books, from children's adventures to her deeply personal memoir, Home, a Memoir of My Early Years. In it, she wrote honestly about the trauma of losing her voice, but also about learning that there are many ways to sing. That one line, many ways to sing, became her philosophy. Julie Andrews may never again hit the high notes of supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but her life after music became an anthem of its own. Through narration and storytelling, she found a softer, wiser tone, one that reminded people that beauty doesn't vanish with age or tragedy. It simply changes shape. And in 2020, during a rare interview, she said something that perfectly captured her journey. "The voice I had is gone, yes, but I still have a voice. It's here, in my words, in my memories, in my family, and that's more than enough." Those words carried more music than any song could. The truth is, Julie Andrews' story isn't just about loss, it's about rebirth. It's about what happens when life silences you, and you learn to sing another way. Because no matter how much the world changes, or how much she's endured, the echo of Julie Andrews' voice will always linger, not on a stage, not in a studio, but in the hearts of those who grew up believing in magic, because she taught them how. Her story reminds us of something we all forget, that even when life takes away the thing that defines us, it can't take away who we are. Julie Andrews may have lost her perfect pitch, but she found something deeper, grace, peace, and a new way to touch the world. And maybe that was always her real song. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. You're watching RetroWaves, where we bring forgotten moments, hidden heartbreaks, and the untold stories of our legends back to life. And remember, even silence can be beautiful if it comes from a voice that once changed the world.